friends, my name is Katie. Welcome back to my channel, Life Between Words. Good news, everyone! I actually have books to talk about this month. I'm going to talk about the books that I read in August and September. Total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I have 8 books to talk about. In a wrap-up that I was watching the other day, Stephanie from That's What She Read said in the wrap-up that she read 9 books in the last couple months and she felt like that was really slumpy. And I was thinking to myself, that's so funny because in the last 2 months I've read 8 books and I feel like I'm finally out of my reading slump. 2 of the books that I read are not in this big pile because one of my dear friends got married in September and she wanted me to give her some books that she could take on her honeymoon. And so a couple of the books that I read in August I thought would be perfect honeymoon reads. So I sent those along with her, plus some others because I can't live without choice, and so I just gave her all of the choices. Just so you know, that noise that you're hearing is Wilder. He's down on the floor playing next to me, and I'm sorry if that's really annoying, guys, but mom life, there's just no getting around it. I can't always film at the most opportune times, and there's never going to be silence in this house unless I start filming at night, but that would require artificial lighting, which I don't have. Every time I've done a video filmed at night, the lighting is just horrendous, and I don't know, I just have a really hard time with it. I always have to refer to my Goodreads because I need to be reminded about the books that I've read and what I thought, especially books from 2 months ago. The first book that I'm going to talk about is one of the books that I lent to my friend, and that is Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. I have now read 3 books by Liane Moriarty: What Alice Forgot, The Husband's Secret, and now Big Little Lies, and I loved all 3 of them. So I think I can officially say that I'm a big fan of Liane Moriarty. She may be my favorite contemporary author. I don't know that for sure. I haven't tried a lot of contemporary authors, but one of the things that I really like about Liane Moriarty's books, they don't really fit into any category neatly. So while I would maybe put them in contemporary because they are a contemporary setting, they're not really romances. I think one of the reasons why I love consuming Liane Moriarty books is that they're so compulsively readable. They're funny, they're biting, they're a little bit mysterious, and they all have a depth that belies the women's fiction genre, which I absolutely love. Not that there's anything wrong with reading just a completely fluffy contemporary book, but I do like that Liane Moriarty has a little bit of depth in her books. One of the things that I loved about Big Little Lies in particular was that it helped get me out of my reading slump. I didn't want to put it down. I didn't want to go to sleep. I just wanted to read the next chapter, and it had been so long since I felt like that. I also, after I read the book, watched the miniseries, which I loved. I thought it was fabulous. There were definitely changes from the miniseries to the book, or from the book to the miniseries, but I still feel like the adaptation was good. The only thing I would say about the TV adaptation that I really didn't like was that, I feel like if I say it, it's a spoiler, but not really. I'll just say this. One of the characters in the miniseries has an affair that doesn't happen in the book. I really, really bristled at that addition in the miniseries. I feel like there was already enough drama in the book. They didn't need to add one more element of drama. It was enough. There was already enough. Oh, it just really grated me the wrong way, but I struggle with infidelity in general, so that might have had something to do with it as well. I don't know. But otherwise, great book, great miniseries. Loved them both. The next book I read was called Do Not Become Alarmed by Mail Malloy. This was on Anne Vogel's summer reading guide list this summer, and I haven't done a book haul in a while, so I don't think I put this in my last book haul. Pretty dang sure. Surprise, sneak peek for a future book haul, if I remember to put this one in then. I've gotten so many books, I've lost track of all of them, but I'll try and do a book haul one of these days. Anyway, this book is about 2 families who take a family vacation during Christmas break on a cruise ship to South America. On one of the daily excursions, the kids get separated from the parents, and then that sort of sets the rest of the book off. I enjoyed this book. I gave it a 3 stars on Goodreads. Maybe I should do a whole video on this, but 3 stars for me sometimes means that I didn't like it, and sometimes it means that I liked it. There are strong 3s for me and weak 3s. I don't like it enough to give it a 4, but I don't dislike it enough to give it a 2, but sometimes a 3 I didn't like. Anyway, It's confusing, I know. This was a strong 3 for me though. This book was harrowing and fast-paced, and it plays on every parent's worst fears. Getting separated from your children in an unfamiliar country and not knowing what happened to them, not knowing if they're dead or alive. We as the reader know what happens to the kids, but it still plays on those fears such that it gets your heart pounding a little bit. It delves into questions surrounding parenting, marriage, blame, guilt, innocence, all of these things that the characters are dealing with throughout the story. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. Next was another book I sent along with my friend on her honeymoon, and that is Ernest Cline's Ready Player One. I feel like I'm probably one of the last people in the world to have read this book, but I'm glad, I'm really, really glad that I finally did. I loved it. As I was reading it, I kept wanting to hand it off to my husband because I know he would love that book so much, but he has not been reading very much recently, so it's true. It was fun and addicting and jam-packed with 80s pop culture references, especially surrounding movies and video games. This book felt to me a little bit like a Liane Moriarty book, which was great because it continued to get me out of my reading slump. While reading this, it felt a little bit like Liane Moriarty without some of the snark and with a little bit of added southern charm or southern flair. This book is about a small town in Georgia called Worthy. It's a football town, a town that relies heavily on the high school football team. It's what brings the town together. On the night of a football game, 3 cheerleaders, oh thank you, what is this? Cider, what kind of cider is this?
Strongbow. You like it?
I do like it. So on the night of a football game, 3 cheerleaders get into a car accident with another high school student, and those 3 cheerleaders die. This event touches the lives of 4 different women, and it affects each of them in different ways. What are you doing that's banging around in there so much? Can you stop banging around so much?
A little thing called Nanya.
We as the readers get to explore each of these perspectives from these women, and we have empathy for all of them and their situations. And even when their perspectives collide, even when they're at odds with each other, we still have sympathy for each one of them and the decisions that they've made, even when those decisions are really poor decisions. We get it because we know the characters so well. One of the characters spends the whole book unwilling to admit to something that happened to her on the night of the car accident. When she finally does admit to what happened to her, when she finally comes to terms with it, the characters who affected her so deeply, they kind of get away with it, and that makes me really angry. And that's not really a fault of the book. I mean, that's the story that was being told, and that's what happened. And unfortunately, it's often what happens in real life. So I'm not really sure I can blame the book for what we see play out in similar situations in real life. I just wanted to see more justice done for this character. Ultimately, this book explores grief and loss, despair, guilt, hypocrisy, truth, survival, and ultimately hope, which is always important to me, especially when it deals with really heavy themes. It does all of this with a deft touch and a tender heart, and I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like at this point I was solidly out of my reading slump, and I have been meaning to pick up this next book forever, ever since I got it. I've been so excited about it. It's the first nonfiction book I've read in quite some time, and it was called The Soul of an Octopus.
You dead, Fox?
What's wrong? Flip that around. You are so fussy. I knew that I wanted to read it because it explored an interesting topic, which is consciousness. So the subtitle is a surprising exploration into the wonder of consciousness. So yeah, I didn't go into it fascinated with octopuses. I went into it wanting to explore what the author had to say about consciousness and the soul. The topic of consciousness and the soul is fascinating to me because my grandmother is fighting a long and losing battle with Alzheimer's, and so she doesn't have a lot of consciousness. And what does that say about her personhood? Because she is still in there deep inside. She isn't who she was, but what is the soul and what is consciousness anyway? Inarticulate Thoughts by Katie. Anyway, I did become fascinated with octopuses throughout the course of this book. Side note, it is octopuses, it is not octopi, which you learn in this book, because octopus is a Greek word, not a Latin word, and you can't put a Latin ending on a Greek word. So octopi would be putting a Latin ending on a Greek word, so it's octopuses, the more you know. So anyway, I did become fascinated with octopuses. I did grow an affectionate attitude toward octopuses because they are so intelligent and fascinating and utterly foreign to who we are. Their intelligence is so different than the intelligence of humans. And especially their incredible connection to the people who take care of them in an aquarium setting. It's a friendship, a kinship between the keeper and the animal that's really beautiful. So it did explore some of those profound questions that I wanted to get in this book. When you explore those questions by looking at a creature that is so utterly alien to us, it ends up revealing a lot about ourselves as humans and what those questions mean for us. This book is part memoir, part science book, part octopus love story, and it was so compelling and so full of compassion, affection, and tenderness, and sometimes pathos that I found myself in tears at several moments in the book, which if you told me that I'd ever cry about an octopus, I would have told you that you were crazy. It was plotted so well, the characters were so strong, and Robin Hobb, like I said before, I think her bread and butter are characters. Her characters are so great. So yeah, I loved it. I can't wait to keep going. I need to know what happens because this one ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. Finally, I read Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. This is a book I've had on my shelf for quite some time. That's enough, Fox. Thank you. Fox, I need to finish my review, okay? And then I'll let you sit on my lap and we can say goodbye together, okay? Many, many people have read Everything I Never Told You. So I feel a little silly telling you the plot, but on the off chance that you haven't read this or haven't heard of it, this is about a family, an Asian American family in the 1970s who are grappling with the death of their eldest daughter. And that is not a spoiler because the first line in the book is Lydia is dead. Fox, what did I say? A lot of people describe this book as a mystery, and while there is maybe a little bit of a mystery aspect to this book, I feel like that's doing the book a little bit of a disservice going into it because it's not really a mystery. It really is just this family grappling with the death of their daughter and their sister. It's dark and poignant and reflective and beautifully written and so heartbreaking. And there's a lot to take away from this book. It deals with not fitting in, it deals with being different, especially in terms of ethnicity, particularly with the children and the father in this book, but also the mother is dealing with her own differences. She was a woman who wanted to be a doctor in the 1950s or 60s. So there's those things that the book is dealing with. But the takeaway for me, most of all, I think was about parenting. This struck me as a cautionary tale about the expectations that parents put on their children and the disastrous consequences of those expectations. Not every family is so dysfunctional and not every child ends up with the kind of issues that these children end up with, but we all know parents that are living vicariously through their children in really unhealthy ways. So, you know, these characters weren't unrecognizable. There was a lot of selfishness in this book. The parents are not particularly likable, especially, but even the children in this book we don't always like, except for Hannah. I have to say that my heart, of all the kids, my heart broke for Hannah the most. It was so hard to read about this family life in general from the perspective of each child and their own unique take on the dysfunction that their parents are putting on them, but it was especially heartbreaking for me to read about Hannah, who was just completely neglected and forgotten about. This book was just, in my opinion, really, really well done. And it wasn't without hope. There was some hope at the very end, although it was not a particularly cheery kind of book. Those were all the books that I read in August and September. I'm so glad because I feel like I'm finally out of this reading slump. Fox, do you want to sit on my lap and say hi in the camera?
Okay, a lot of highs.
A lot of highs. Tell me what your reading life has been like. Tell me what you're looking forward to in October. I'm thinking that I'm going to participate in Spookathon this month. So look out for a TBR for that. I'm very excited about all the books that I want to read this month, even though I know I'm not going to get to them all. Fox, do you want to tell everyone what you want to be for Halloween? Spider-Man changes every day. Sometimes it's Spider-Man, sometimes it's Batman, robot, skeleton. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. We've got a month to decide, huh?
And the Captain America.
Oh, a Captain America.
I'm the Captain America.
You want to be Captain America? Okay. Alright, well, there you go. I will talk to you all later. I hope you guys are having a great beginning of October. Bye! Do you want to say anything else?
Bye.
I'm done.